What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown, and this is Heresy Financial. As you can see, what we've got up on the screen here, German citizens are stockpiling gold right now. So we're going to talk about why that's significant, what that means, why they're stockpiling gold right now, to what extent are they buying gold compared to the last 10 years, and what that means in light of what the gold price has been doing recently as well. Ready? Let's dive in. All right, so Germans are piling into gold right now. And one of the reasons this is significant is because Germany, relatively recently, 100 years ago, experienced one of the most severe cases of hyperinflation in history, destroyed their currency. And you can see here the director at one of the metals dealers there said, "We have a long history of inflation fear in our DNA. Now the inflation risk is picking up." Obviously, they're starting to see signs globally that countries are doing the same thing that they went through 100 years ago, and they saw how that ended. Same type of thing. How you hear financial wisdom and advice from your grandparents. It's all rooted in the Great Depression. It's rooted in what they experienced as young kids, or what their parents went through, and so. The same type of thing is happening here. They're looking around the world, seeing all of the money printing, seeing the expansion of the money supply in order to fund things that should have a good economic return. Like, they were printing money in Germany to pay for the war. And if they would have won the war, then they could have set the rules on how it was to be resolved. And so it was looked at as a sacrifice, temporary sacrifice that would pay off long term. They recognized, hey, no, this doesn't play out long term in a good way at all. And so they're very fearful and scared of hyperinflation. And so as a people, they're realizing, hey, we need to put our wealth into something that is more substantial than paper. And you can see here this graph. They've recently purchased more than it's at least a decade high. So this goes back to 2010 there. You can see this last spike in 2012 is just below what they're at right now. And so they're buying a lot of gold right now. And it's kind of unfortunate in a country like the United States. Like, many people don't realize this, but we went through hyperinflation before the United States was formed, and when we hyperinflated away the Continental. That was a currency that we used, and it was because of the hyperinflation in the Continental that the Articles of Confederation was changed when they formed the Constitution. So in the Constitution, it says that the federal government only has the power to coin, gold, basically make gold and silver money, and basically just set the definition of, hey, dollar means a certain amount of gold in weight or silver, whereas before the verbiage that were in the Articles of Confederation was a lot more loose and gave the federal government powers beyond that. And so they said, we don't want to deal with paper money. We've experienced the hyperinflation and the economic destruction that causes, so the government should only be able to basically set a legal definition on a weight of gold and what that name is of that weight of gold. Or metal. And so that's why it specifically said coin. The word coin was put in, and that was the change. And so we've, in America, we've got that in our history. We've got hyperinflation in our history. We just don't remember it as much as the Germans remember theirs. It was also a lot more recent. Same reason why places like, Georgia, the country that, recently, formerly part of the USSR, right now they're completely opposite of all of that socialism, communism from decades past. And they're, the exact opposite. They're freedom oriented, they're low taxes, they're business friendly, because they recognize the destruction that is caused under those things. And so German citizens buying gold, and it's not just Germany. If we look right now, their report just came out from the Hindu business line. Gold smuggling is probably at about 300 tons annually, and this gold is something many people in the West don't use. Germany's probably an exception, but many people in the West do not look at gold as a very common or good way to store your wealth. And that's not the case for the majority of the world, especially in a place like India. over a billion people in India, and the government has not had the most success. They have not had the most conservative monetary policy over the last couple of years. They've done things where they've just completely said, okay, you've got this, in America, it'd be like, a $20 bill, their equivalent of a $20 bill. They just said, hey, this is no longer good for money. It is no longer legal tender. You have, I think it was 24 hours or a couple days to return those bills and exchange it for other bills. Otherwise, if you don't do it within this time frame, that's just toilet paper now. And so basically they've had experience where they've like, hey, we need to store our wealth in something other than government money. And they're a huge, with jewelry, they store their wealth in jewelry and coins. And this is one of the reasons why, I always say that there's more similarities between Bitcoin and gold than people realize, because you could, a country like India looking at, all of this smuggling of gold, because people like to store their wealth in it and they look at it as money and they don't want to have to pay taxes on it or anything like that. And they want to keep it secret. And you could look at that and you can say, okay, well, they could just ban it. They could outlaw it. But there's a difference between passing a law and enforcing a law. And the act of banning something that people are using as protection against tyranny is very difficult to enforce if it's not popular. And so that's what India is going through right now. And just a couple months ago, I talked about this. I don't know. This was in April. Okay. China recently opened its borders to billions of dollars of gold imports, and they licensed. They gave their international banks, their biggest banks, permission to import large amounts of gold into the country. And ever since the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, they've highly encouraged their citizens to buy gold and buy more gold and store their wealth in gold. And again, China, over a billion people in China. So this is significant that many people in the world view gold very differently than the West, who's just been kind of complacent and become just fine with watching our purchasing power disappear from our paper money, our government money. Now, lots of people look at the last year, which the last year, you can take a look at this gold chart, has not been the kindest to gold investors, especially if you bought kind of at the peak here before this sell-off started last August. And so the last year has been, a downtrend, a bear market, if you will, in gold, definitely. But one of the things that is important to remember here is that gold is many times it's inversely correlated to real yields. And with all this taper talk coming out of the Federal Reserve and looking like they're going to tighten up on their easy monetary policy soon, we have Kaplan going around right now talking about, hey, and I guess this is Bullard, but Kaplan as well. They've both been talking about, hey, we need to taper, we need to tighten up here. We don't need to be contributing so much easy money into the economy. We're potentially creating bubbles and more harm than good right now. We're scared about inflation, things like that. And so all this to prepare for Powell, who's talking tomorrow, Friday, August 27th at Jackson Hole. And so the market is prepping for potential tapering. You've heard me talk about this before. I don't think the Federal Reserve has the ability to, if they start to taper, to keep on going at that, because it will start kind of a domino effect on the market. The economy is not in a place where it can handle that. The only reason why the asset prices are where they're at right now is simply because of all of this easy money. So if you start to pull that back, you're going to see all of that start to reverse itself and undo itself. But one of the things that I'd like to point out, that I pointed out before, is back in 2015, the bottom of gold in this last big consolidation period, the bottom was when was right at the same point as the Federal Reserve initially started raising their rates. And so there was a lot of fear after, they dropped rates to deal with the financial crisis. Then this whole entire time, there was a lot of fear about what would happen when the Federal Reserve started to raise rates again. And during that time, gold fell, right? It was falling that entire time. The bottom came in, though, when they actually put action behind their words. That's when gold started going back up again. And we're probably, in my opinion, I would not be surprised at all if we see a similar type of thing where the Federal Reserve starts to tighten. That marks a bottom in gold right around here. And we just start going up from there, because at that point, it's like all the bad news has been factored in already. All of that has been taken into account by the market, especially considering the ramifications, the economic fallout, the asset price drops that are going to happen as a result of that will probably necessitate the Federal Reserve reversing course and buying more assets, reversing that taper and increasing their asset purchases and pumping more easy money into the economy. So there's an update on gold for you. Basically, the people in the world who have cultural memories or personal experience with disastrous monetary policy and have seen the consequences of that, they're the ones that are buying gold right now. As to who ends up being right in the end, only time can tell. As always, thank you so much for watching. You guys have a great day.